All right, this will be the day trade recap for Thursday, August 20th, 2026. Let's take a look at the pre-market plan. So, price has broken out of this higher time frame balance at all-time highs. We saw some weakness for a few days, which rallied yesterday's pre-market and into the session. That session ended up closing pretty flat, and then overnight we saw another sell-off, leaving behind a nice low volume node on this sell-off. One thing I want to note is it's kind of similar to yesterday's rally, leaving behind that low volume node. I'm going to mention something about that later. But main plan today was if we rejected this low volume node, I'd look for shorts. If price just sells off at open, I'm also looking for shorts, and I can't really look for longs until upside on this low volume node is taken out. So let's get into it. We have a lot to review today, so I'm going to try to keep it pretty fast. So that low volume node was 7702, 7715. So price opens, rallies right into this level, and I take my first entry here that ends up losing a point and a tick. Let's get into the entry real quick. So we get this rally up into our key level. Offers start loading in. We start seeing some buyers get smaller towards the highs. Start seeing them get exhausted in this offer. Price sells off a little bit. Price rallies up then into this bid where we see absorption, and then price starts to sell off. I get in. Immediately price comes up to my stop loss, almost takes me out, comes back down. At this point, I'm already feeling pretty iffy about this trade. And you can see seconds later I cut it. It just, first of all, usually on a reversal setup, the first thing I need to see is absorption, not aggression, or absorption, not exhaustion, which we had exhaustion up here. Second, I'd like to see a nice aggressive sell-off. This is only 3 points right here, pretty invalid. Definitely a forced setup, but then again, like really good risk management on it, didn't lose too much, but that is not an entry I would like to take again, so I'm going to note that going forward. So same thesis still playing out here in this low volume node area, and I take two more shorts. This first one getting some decent run up, stopping for a point and a tick again, and then the second one getting some really good run up, pretty close to targets, and then ended up cutting that one break even. So we'll get into those next two entries real quick. So after this last trade stopped out, we get a nice rally higher. This buying slows down, we start to consolidate. Here we actually do see some absorption. You see some larger buying up in here. This larger rally here fails. Another one fails into this offer. Sells off a little bit. Still not the best entry because we still haven't seen much aggression from the sell side yet. We're more just seeing buyers getting absorbed now. But this buyer rallies up here, gets absorbed by this bid or offer. This offer loads in and the price starts to dump. I go ahead and get an entry in that. And you can see it started to go in my favor pretty well. At this point, I'm reducing risk, especially with my original entry not being as good because we didn't see that aggression yet. And of course, I didn't manually cut this. I cut this with a trailing stop, and it got taken to the exact tick. Now, I'm not saying I would have been able to hit target on this move right here, but that just happens sometimes. It sucks. It is what it is. Luckily, I was able to get a second entry on that retest. So, and this was a better entry. So now we have that original absorption. I'm already in at this point on this move. But if we look at that move I was in on, we see this absorption, this aggression. Now that's an actual aggressive move rather than this like 3-4 point move. This was 6-7 points. So it's still not crazy, but it's good enough. And then on this rally, we see kind of a really quick triple top. 1, 2, 3, tiny buyers get exhausted. That is a perfect setup. I get my entry, price dips. I go break even pretty quick when we're up like 4 or 5 points. Bounces out of this bid, not surprised, break even hit. Part of me could be like, why didn't you take profits in this bid? You knew it could bounce. Well, that's not enough risk reward for me, and I know it could potentially bounce there, so that's why I'm going break even, but I also know it could potentially break that. So that's why I'd rather, instead of taking profits early, I'd rather just hold break even, and then that gives me the chance to catch better profits if the move does occur. I'd rather trade on that side of the double-edged sword. All right, we're 5 minutes in, about halfway done with our entries. I'm going to try to keep the pace up pretty good. So at this point, price is starting to form an intraday balance, what we've done the past entire week and last week mostly. But we break this balance low, and I get in on a downside continuation play. Now, not super happy with this play, mainly because it was forced because the context was there. We were rejecting the low volume node. I'm starting to get FOMO because I didn't get in another entry on here and my original setup is playing out. So that kind of leads me to saying, okay, this low breaks, I'm going to get in on a retest. Now, what I don't like about this is if I'm playing a continuation play, I need to see one of two things. It's either the sharp aggressive pullback or the CFR, which is consolidation, then a failed break of that. I don't see a consolidation or a sharp aggressive pullback. This is a pullback right here, but it's only a few points. Like, I would have liked to see another sell-off of 2, 3, 4 more points down, then that pullback happen. All I really see here is some exhaustion happening. I get an entry, and the other bad thing about this is I did not cut it early when we got some run-up and then failed, and I had my finger on the trigger to do that. I just couldn't pull myself to do it, so I ended up taking a full loss on this of 2.75 points, which isn't the end of the world, but on a crappy entry, and that was my biggest loss today. So with a crappy entry and then letting it be the biggest loss today, that's my big mistake on the day. If I would have not taken that loss, I would be break even on the day, except because of it, I'm down just a little bit. But still good risk management on it, nothing crazy, and we're surviving and moving on. So this setup fails. I'm now hooked on this intraday balance idea. It's only a 10-point range, but I think FOMO's hit me a little bit. Revenge, just the frustration of this week is building up. Price starts to rally super aggressively off of the balance low, and I take 2 entries. We'll look at them real quick. So we see kind of some absorption occurring down here. Aggressive selling fails, aggressive buying comes in. This is setting up to be pretty good. We rally down or pull back down into this area where this bid steps in. Price starts to rally. I get an entry. I cut myself for a 2.5 point loss. Of course, it just goes barely below where I stopped and then rallies again. That does get me a second entry. We see this exhaustion right here from the seller. I get back in. Price moves up a little bit, and then buying starts to really get congested here and absorbed. So when price started to sell off out of that, I stopped myself out for a single tick. I'm going to count that one as break even. And at this point, I could feel myself kind of slipping into bad old habits. I just ripped 3 trades within 3 minutes. 2 losses, 1 break even. Pretty poor entry on the first short, and then these weren't necessarily poor, but a little bit forced, and I was the mind was just, it was going crazy. Emotions were heightened. I was definitely in a period of adversity at this point in time. So I cut myself out of that trade, and I'm pretty upset, but I write to myself just that the market has been extremely challenging this week, and I need to just stay systematic and don't let anything throw me off my game. And I also wrote how I was proud of making progress and cutting my losers. So I did some positive self-talk here to keep me from doing anything crazy, from getting too caught up in the day. Because 6 losses in on the day, this is where I would this is blow up. This is, I need a win. I don't care how many times it takes me to get it. I'm going to keep forcing it to get it. And also, at this point, being down 6, 6 trades, all losers. Well, I guess 2 break evens. But between those 4 true losers, I'm only down 7 points or something around that. When previously I would have been down 10, 15 points because I'm not able to cut losers quick. So that was just kind of, at this point in time right here, down pretty much, you could say 0-4-2 or 0-6. Just did a little bit of positive self-talk to help keep me on my game and not throw me off and just deal with a frustrating week. It has been super frustrating. And last time this happened, I was in Michigan in July, the beginning of July, and I let a few days of frustration lead me to 2 or 3 days of completely getting away from my systematic processes, just being an absolute idiot, tilting, forcing revenge trades, and I blew accounts during that period. So a good job on my part for stepping in and not letting that happen, just staying aware of all the contexts that are affecting me right now. I want market psychology, the past few days, built up frustration, just everything. Just trying to stay aware of that. And the main goal is just staying systematic, following daily rules, and not blowing up. And we've been able to do a good job of that. And cutting losers early has really helped and been beneficial for that as well. So enough with the rant. We'll get into this last 2 trades right here. So this is a purely market developed setup. I was kind of watching for if buyers could come in here in this little structured demand area, and they came in just a little bit below. But what we saw, it all started with some absorption that came in on the tape. So we'll look at that real quick. Look at these 2 large sellers that came in here. At this point, I was looking for downside con. So I was looking to see if these sellers could push the market lower, but they didn't. And then we get this aggressive rally. And the bubbles don't look huge because of these 2 bubbles. But the reason we know it's aggressive is look how long it takes. It takes like 10 seconds for price to just rip like that. Price pulls back. We see exhaustion. I get an entry. All right, this moves. I end up stopping out and getting one more entry. Stopped out of that first play for just 2 points in the tick. So you can see it failed a little bit, pulled back. This time more into the level I was watching. Exhaustion again. Strong buying starts to come in. I get an entry. And I need to see this offer break. Now, one thing I want to talk about, because I have been trying to get better at responding to red flags, is how they're kind of, I don't know if it's, because every offer you see is not a red flag. So why is this not a red flag? And other times it would be, or it could be if it was a little bit different. So if I'm looking for long reversals and say this first rally right here, see this offer, say this offer stays really strong and holds, price doesn't push up here, rejects right here, and sells off, that could be a red flag to me because this initial aggression wasn't really strong enough, and it failed. So at that point, I'm waiting for, I'd like to see an aggressive print break through that offer to then get in. So that's one scenario where it would be a red flag. Another scenario where it would be a red flag is say price rejects here, but this offer stays where I have highlighted, and it doesn't. You see how it's gone now? Say it was still sitting there and price pulls back here, I'm probably not going to want to get in that trade. Or if I do get in that trade, and then we start to see this action right here where we're rejecting an offer, that is a massive red flag to me, and I get out. I'm aware of it the whole time. Now, with this offer way up here, it's not really a red flag on this entry because it hasn't in the very recent history, it has not acted as a seller to resist price. Yes, it is sitting there and it could act as a seller, but it hasn't showed us anything yet, and we have enough room to it to where if we do end up hitting that level, I'll be reducing my risk anyway. So I don't know if that makes sense. It makes sense to me. And it's another thing I'm working on as of recent, is being more aware of red flags and responding to them. Yeah, this trade ended up working well. There's that absorption you can see clearly. And not really a key level. This is purely market developed. Price rallies, I forgot to write my exit, but I got out at, I believe it was one of these 2 pullbacks. I had a trail. I wanted a little bit more, but I ended up getting 6.5 points on that. So with 5 losses, 2 break evens, and 1 win, I'm only down 3.75 points. And my biggest loss today was 2.75 points. So, again, a rough day, but risk management and getting rid of losers and just following our plan has been able to keep us from blowing up. Obviously, we didn't make a ton of money today. We didn't make any money. We lost a little bit, but we did not blow up. And then one last thing I want to talk about is just with how the market's been tricky. Like, this is another thing where you're like, it can just really get to you if you let it. So if we look at yesterday's pre-market plan, this low volume node, 7720 to 7740, it was looking for bounces out of there. We look at yesterday's action. One moment. Yesterday's action. Look where we formed a low, 7720. Bottom of that low volume node, rallied all day. Today, where was the top of our low volume node? Oopsies. 7715. Where did we reject this morning? 7715. So it's like when I'm doing order flow and I see a level like that just get respected 2 days in a row so perfectly, and part of you was like, dang, you could just trade that level, just have a limit there, blah, blah, blah. But it's not that easy, and it doesn't fit my system, because my system is not just the level, it's what's also happening at that level in the current time. And yes, there was a setup on this move where I could have gotten short, but I didn't take it. So the whole reason for that is, like, my plan held up perfectly the past 2 days, but with how the market's developed and what it's given us, I haven't been able to capitalize and make money on it. And that's something you could get frustrated about, or you could understand that it's not about being perfect, and you can understand that the market has been tricky and you can learn from your mistakes. And yeah, just also realizing there are days when you'll lose money even if you don't make mistakes, because you're not going to be perfect, and the market is not perfect either. At this point, I'm just rambling, so I'm going to be off the market tomorrow for work, so we'll hopefully be back Monday and hopefully have some better price action next week. But yeah, peace.